Okay, so this is about a month in now. I don't think we've done a lot since last week. I think we've added that red plant you see maybe there in the corner. It has lost a leaf or two, probably going to lose a few more. It looks like there's some holes and some thin spots. I'm not sure it transported or transplanted very well, but enough of it looks healthy. I think we'll keep some of it, and I think once it gets itself climatized, it'll come back. Diatom algae is still an issue, but if you look at this tank, look at the roots. Look at the roots on the surface plants. This is crazy. I have been fertilizing it the last few weeks, and I've decided this weekend to take a pause. The plants are healthy. I don't think we need the fertilizer in there every week. Everything's growing, roots are developing on everything, but I'm concerned about the algae. There's some decent diatom algae on the Anubis and on some of the other plants that the algae eaters don't seem to get to. And on the wood, you can see there is some algae that is a little tougher. It's more than just biofilm. And every now and then you see the fish picking at it, but for the most part, that's just sort of there. And I didn't really notice that that was even growing in very much until after we started fertilizing. So I think just taking a pause on the fertilizing, letting the tank find a bit of an equilibrium again before we add any more fertilizer to this tank. It really doesn't need it right now. I was putting it in there just for the reds and hoping everything to get rooted. They haven't found their way into the really into the substrate yet. It hadn't had a lot of time in the first week or two to find the nutrients in the soil. But at this point, those roots I think should be developing and finding their way down. So I think we can take a pause on fertilizing here and see if before I take any other measures whether or not the current fish and setup can get the algae under control. I don't want to start changing a bunch of parameters like lighting and everything else. We'll take little swings at it at a time until we learn. I think just knocking off some fertilizing and letting the tank find a bit of an equilibrium right now might just do the job. So the female guppy, she's definitely pregnant again. A couple of the zebras are pregnant for sure. Well, they have eggs anyways. Most of the time now you only see 4 or 5 of the neons. As with most neons, they get territorial and shitty with each other, and they just become a pain in the ass. I'd actually forgotten this about neons, and if I had remembered when I was in the store, I might have gone a different direction, because in some ways I'm regretting having these little shits. They're a bit more of a pain in the ass sometimes than they're worth. But that's a problem for future. Right now, we'll leave it. As you can see, my cleanup crew spends an inordinate amount of time on this leaf pile. The other thing I don't understand is I'm not running any carbon in this tank. And I put those catappa leaves and the botanicals in there hoping that it would color the tank up. Now that it's had time to settle, I kind of wanted that nice clear tint. And they didn't tint the water at all, really. Old leaves? I don't know. But yeah, speaking about Mama, she is the reason that there is now this. This was just set up yesterday. You can tell the water's a little cloudy. That's just new tank setup. They usually go like this. Probably a couple days. It can last as much as a week or so, new tank. I prefer not to do drastic water changes to get rid of it. I'd rather let the tank find its own equilibrium. And this has got a bunch of plants. That piece of wood was in another tank. A lot of the gravel that was in here was in the jar. I put our lone little shrimp buddy that I keep moving around because I thought he was dying in this tank. He's sitting on an algae wafer right now because there's really nothing in here for him to eat. I've also picked up a mystery snail. He's pretty cool. I gotta admit, I like him. But this tank is essentially not going to be anything more than somewhere to put the female guppy to have her babies, because I can't have 30, 40, 60 more fish in this tank. Not that I'm afraid it'll support it. I'm afraid of having to try and catch them and get them out of here. So this presents less of a challenge to catch things. So I'll move her here when she needs to give birth. And I'm hoping maybe I can have another cherry red shrimp colony in here. Maybe they'll be a little bit more visible. I find, I really thought all the fish or all the cherries in this tank had probably died off. I put some Amanos in it last week. I don't know if that got mentioned. They're great. They come out a little bit more often, but I've noticed actually now, after a month, I don't think the cherry shrimp in here that are still alive are sick. I think whatever it is about these surface plants, because even the Amanos, when I put them in here, almost immediately went to the surface plants. And you rarely find them on anything else except at night. When the light starts to dim, I find they come out a little bit more. I am seeing them a little more often than I used to. I do think there are a lot more of the cherry shrimp alive in here than I previously did. I still think I lost a number of them, but yeah, I'm still so impressed with how this tank is working out. I've never had a tank start up this healthy. I have learned a number of things in planting this tank and running this short little experiment, even not to do in the next setup. Things that I've done that I don't like, things that I would change, the way I escaped it. Too many plants. Too many plants. I mean, it's not that there's too. Let me rephrase that. It's not that there's too many plants in here. I mean, there's a lot, which is great. That's what I wanted. I wanted kind of a natural setup that would take care of itself without a lot of intervention. I don't really do water changes all the time. What I mean is, when I started, I overbought. And now this is about as heavily planted as I want to see this tank. And I think the thing to do next time is to buy just a few less, especially stem plants, and then propagate them. Let them grow up and then cut them and propagate them. And that's how I would get a nicely planted tank and slightly less budget. So, I mean, yeah, it's great. I love the planted, but I overplanted in the beginning, which means anything I cut out of here is just waste now. And that's kind of unfortunate. Maybe money would have been better spent by buying a little bit less and waiting a little bit longer to plant it a little heavier. But that would also mean you'd have to be more careful about your bio load early on, or rely more heavily on the surface plants to do the job. I also trimmed the roots of the red root floaters this last week. They were, I mean, look at some of these roots are super long, but those are the water lettuce. And I like that. But the red root ones, they didn't kind of grow straight down and stay there. They kind of grew long and then would curl around everything else in the tank, and it's just messy. So I cut them back. I think they're going to be okay. I've put some floaters in here, obviously, to try and get it established. But yeah, that's a month in, and it looks a whole lot better than I expected it to. If I had known that this was going to work out as well as it was, I might have been more choosy in what I put in here for fish. I'm so accustomed to losing fish. I guess I kind of bought fish and didn't really care one way or the other. I love zebra danios, but if I had known this was going to work out and I wasn't going to lose anything, I would never bought guppies. And I might have just filled it with 2 or 3 different kinds of long fin danios, some zebras, some leopards, maybe even some glowfins, and just watch them school in and around the roots and the wood and everything. I might have taken a pass on the rest, but I can always correct that in the future. I can always get rid of some fish, take them back. I really like this tank. I really wish it was a prettier tank. I mean, I wish the tank and the stand and everything were nicer and it was a low iron glass, something to the quality of this one where when it's clear, it's clear. It's got a lot of scratches, a lot of abuse. Half of me wants to take it down and rescape it, knowing what works and what doesn't and how it progressed, and just having learned so much more in the last month than before I did that. And the other half of me just really wants to see how it works, because this is, the dirted substrate. This is supposed to be the natural tank that really only needs surface agitation and doesn't need filtration. So I'm torn. I want to see how this progresses over months and years, or a year or so. But man, I look at it now and I go, oh, I did so many things I don't like in here. I wish I could fix, and I can't. Like gluing plants to rocks. Yes, you can. They're an epiphyte, but next time make it look less like they were glued to a rock and more like this, that they're coming out of the rock. These I didn't even glue, except for the top one. They're just kind of crammed in, and I wish maybe I had done that here. I really don't like the way that looks with those plants just stuck on there. But yeah, that's where we're at. I probably won't update this every week anymore. Just changes, and maybe a month or so. We'll see. This was just for me to remember things as I set things up, so I don't forget. Maybe some important steps or important things that happen. Sometimes as time goes on and you start a new project, you forget that certain things happened along the way and why. Maybe that's just me getting old. But yeah, remember the things that we talked about in these videos.